Now I know my mic working. Let me go ahead and check this thing. Boom. There we go. Drake, can you hear me? Oh, Lord Jesus, hold on. All right. Drake, can you hear me? Test, mic check. Oh, shoot, it is on Dre's side. Let me add to the stream. All right, can y'all, everybody, we good? Test, mic check. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So AJ can hear me. Dre, you good? Or you still struggling?
Okay.
All right. I can hear you.
Okay, good. I can hear everything now.
I'll bet. All right. God dang. All right, let's try this again. Let me send this goddamn tweet out. While I was over there talking the first time, I'm like, God damn. I thought it was my Wi-Fi, and then I realized there was a whole bunch of things going on.
Yeah.
To restart. All right, boom. That's done. All right, round 2. Welcome back to another episode of the Chop It Down podcast, provided to you by 214 Media. I am your host, Molly Mo, here with AJ and Dre. Later today, before I check in with the fellas, we do have Mike Oliva of the Miami Dolphins.com and DolphinsTalk.com. It's going to check in with us, and we got to talk a little quarterback, man, as we start our hunt for the QB1 search. And we're going to start with Tua this week. So before we get to it, and before we get to the other things, fellas, how y'all doing? AJ, Dre, it's been a little minute, man. Everything good?
We got a new name now. Shit, we ain't no Washington football team no more. It's the Commanders.
We the Commanders now. Absolutely.
Hey.
Absolutely. AJ, how you feeling? You good?
Yeah, I'm good. How about y'all?
I'm all right, man. You look a little sad over there, bro.
Oh no, I'm cooling, man. I'm cooling.
Okay. All right. So listen, man, it's been an interesting week for the Commanders. And I thought about it like where are we going to start with this whole thing, and I guess I'm gonna go broader topic and just hand it over to you all, 'cause a lot of people ask me did I want this name, and like I don't know how to tell them. I don't know how to tell them like, bruh, I didn't care that much about the name. But fellas, what do y'all think? Were y'all surprised at all by anything?
No.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, I felt like it was going to be a lazy approach. It's been real sloppy, and to be honest with y'all, I've known the name of the team for about a month now.
You signed the NDA, bro?
Nah, I mean, I ain't signed no NDA with them, but like, you know, one of my guys is on the team, so they kind of like leak some information, things of that nature. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It was a lazy approach when I seen how they were going about the branding of it. I just knew it was going to be something basic, like, you know, you didn't hire like some top like marketing agency, ad agency that, you know, kind of can get in touch with the younger audience. So you just knew it was going to be something generic and basic, and yeah, it was Commanders.
Now, I think the thing that kicked this thing all off, at least for the public, because that's interesting, like that you knew for a month. And truthfully, Commander's name itself, again, I'm indifferent towards it. But I think what really kicked things off and kind of set expectations for people in terms of a name was, I think it all started with Joe Theismann. Like we all had our hunches about Commanders. Like that was the favorite. Shut up. That was the favorite. But until he goes on the national interview, I forgot who he was speaking with, and he ends up blurting out, you know, I think Commanders is blah blah blah. You know, that only kind of indicates like, you know, that's not no slip up. I mean, that's not no guesstimation of the name. That's a slip up. Like that's an admitted slip up a couple days before we're out. So I think that's kind of what kicked the whole thing off. And then we had the jersey leaks, the concept leaks, and the merch started to leak Tuesday evening. Now, AJ, you said it was sloppy. Dre, I think Yeah, it was you. I'm about to say I saw a tweet something talking about like the levels to which the local media went to kind of capture that stuff at FedEx. I forgot exactly what you said, but that shit was hilarious. But yeah, how do y'all think they handled it like this week? I know you said AJ, you were talking about just the overall process, but how about this week in terms of just protecting their reveal?
I mean, I think that there's certain things that they could have did to, even though some people within the building, players and all those things knew of the name to some degree. I just feel like they didn't cover all bases in regards to this information not leaking or thinking what could people be doing to try to obtain the information. Like prime example, product, right? You know that
Wait, you
Nike
said
is
who? My
the
bad. I missed what you
I was
said.
saying
Who?
I was saying like prime example product. Like
Oh,
prime
okay.
example, Nike. Nike makes a merchandising, right? These are common 9 to 5 people that have to put those products on display to be sold. You know, those employees took pictures of the items and uploaded it to the internet immediately in the local market. You have to think like, damn, we need to we need to secure all of these merchandising items before we announce the reveal of the name because this is something that could easily be, uploaded to the internet. That wasn't taken care of. The helicopter thing could have been a little extreme, but at the same
I
token,
thought that shit was crazy.
they already up in the air anyways for traffic. And the fact that they got cameras, they could zoom in and could see directly into the stadium and see different things, whether it be the commanders within the stadium, like on the field area or the store. Like it just was a poor job of a reveal. I watched the Today Show. Even the way that they announced it on air was just weak as hell. Like it was like no excitement behind it. Even the alumni that they brought in to like help celebrate the moment, like fucking Rod Gardner, bro. Like, like you're bringing Rod Gardner, like, but at the end of the day, a lot of people don't know that a lot of not a lot, all of those guys got paid to be there. They all got paid to be there. All got compensated. Their tickets to fly in were all taken care of. All those things, but it's just like one of your main players in the Washington franchise history was not present. Daryl Green. That's alarming for me. Like, I don't know what's going
I
on
didn't think about
that
that.
end. I do. I have dealt with Daryl in the past, whatever. So I know he's kind of difficult, but at the end of the day, like he's one of your marquee players that's still alive and present, and he was not available. Ron Rivera was not available in that moment. He wasn't there on site. He didn't become available until maybe 2 or 3 p.m. later on that day.
Yeah.
But it's just a lot of things, and I don't think that
Well, we know the
you want
Ron
to
thing though.
really.
He was with his folk though. Ron was he was
Yeah,
with his
but it's
dad.
like at the same token, then I think you got to make that happen. You the head coach. Like I understand family, you feel me? But this is a rebrand of a team. You're the head coach of the team, and you aren't even present. That's pretty telling. They didn't have to do that
I ain't
particular
gonna hold
date.
it.
They decided to do that date, and he already probably knew that he was going to celebrate. You know what? I think his brother or dad's birthday. I don't know. It's
His
somebody's
dad's
birthday.
birthday.
But when they brought up the idea of 22, when he told them like, hey, I already got intentions to be wherever the hell he is, right? They should have moved the date because it looks awful that your coach wasn't present. I mean, of course, I know we doing Zoom meetings and all of that, but it kind of hits differently when your coach isn't standing side by side with the owner, Daniel and Tanya Snyder, and things of that nature. And then you have Joe Theismann just go out there and blurt out the information. I mean, you got to know certain motherfuckers you can't tell that type of shit to, and he's one of them. So,
Yeah,
it was just
I mean,
sloppy overall.
But
I ain't gonna
the
lie. You got it, Jay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the funny thing is Ron kind of broke it like a month ago itself. Remember when he had got up on his one of his press conferences and he threw out the little blurb. He was like, "I command you" or something. But there was a little back and forth thing with him and Ben. But he said "command" first.
Yeah,
So I
I
mean, but
remember that.
people thought it was a diversion then. But I mean, they were giving you hints for a while, kind of what it was gonna be. As far as the rollout, I mean, yeah, it was sloppy. The Today Show thing was
That's the
It
only thing that
wasn't.
really got me.
Yeah, that's what
That
I'm saying.
Today
It
Show.
wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I thought they were going to have like some kind of big time reveal show where they do some kind of fireworks or have some kind of models come out there or the players come out there with the uniforms. I thought it was going to be something. I didn't know they was going to have like a podcast setting when no one knew who was going to reveal the name. Jason, he looks at what's his face, Doug Williams, and he goes, "Doug, you know the name." Then Doug looks at John Allen like, "What about you?" And then he just blurts it out. So I mean, that was just a little bit of a Washington football moment in a sense. But as far as like the whole get up with the alumni, I mean, I don't know what those guys' plans were, like Daryl. And then I don't think Joe Theismann was there, but I mean, he probably were pissed at him for revealing the damn thing 2 days ago. So, but we'll see what happens tomorrow. I know they're supposed to be doing the big thing tomorrow. I don't know who's going to show up. I don't know what kind of show they're giving the fans, but maybe they're putting all their efforts into that. Like I said, it's the Pro Bowl this week, so I feel like they probably wanted to get it out this week so John Allen and I guess Brandon Scherf can wear the new jerseys or helmet at the Pro Bowl. But like I said, I mean, it's nothing shocked me. The name didn't shock me. How the rollout turned out didn't shock me. At this point, we just want to see a good product. We want to see as good a competitive product on the field.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of my things that dawned on me, I'm gonna be honest with you, like I said, the only thing that really bothered me was the Today Show for two reasons. One, y'all said 8:00. Sure, you want to give a little bit of a wait time. You want to get people in at 8 so you can have the people waiting, but at the same time, you had us wait 15 minutes. And you gave us 30 seconds of a interview, a question, and a name reveal blurted out very awkwardly. But that's the one thing that bothered me. But then the second thing I thought about was, while there hasn't been no prominent teams like the Washington Redskins organization, who's been around for some time, change their names in recent years, my thing is, like, and it dawned on me as I'm walking Dakota this evening, what reveals are really memorable when you look back at them however many years ago. Like, I thought about it, like, have we ever talked about the day the Baltimore Ravens got introduced to Baltimore, or the day that the Jacksonville Jaguars got introduced to Jacksonville, or what are the other expansions? Houston Texans. What about Tennessee Titans when they moved from Houston? I don't know what these things look like, so maybe people who are around can speak on it. But I'm like, at the end of the day, when I think about how significant it was, sure, it is very significant in the moment given the context and the history of the team. But later down the line, I think it was Dre, you just mentioned it about the winning part. When you start winning, or if you start losing, that's what it always comes back to. I don't think we're going to talk about the reveal anymore. It just goes to show like how unprepared the team is, sure. But it just dawned on me, like, I don't. It's not going to make a difference after the next week or two.
Well, I was gonna say the Cleveland Guardians or the Cleveland Indians just had a reveal, and that was nothing. We didn't get any kind of big show, or it just blurted out.
They had a very cool Cleveland video, like on Twitter. That's what it was.
I mean, but I also think like you have to remember those teams, those franchises that you named were in the 90s. They don't have the tools to their disposal to amplify this on a bigger level. At the end of the day of a rebrand, you're not just trying to capture your local market. You're trying to capture a market internationally, right? So at the end of the day,
that's a very good point.
There's little things that they did in the local market, whether it be like Mosaic District in Maryfield, or Union Market in DC, where they put up the Commanders. They had the Teslas and players riding around, giving people items and stuff. That's cool and all. But at the end of the day, the rebrand is for an international market, because the Washington fan base is an international team. You feel me? Like, it's people from all different parts of the world that are fans of the Washington Redskins. And there's people that live here locally in the past that have now had to relocate. So for me, I actually, growing up in the area, I was at the reveal event when the Washington Bullets changed to the Washington Wizards, where they had Juwan Howard, Chris Webber come out in the new uniforms. They had, mascots and all those different things. And it was a big ordeal. I mean, I was young at the time, but at the same token, I remember that, and the whole point of the rebrand, one of the major keys is to captivate the audience of the younger fans. Like, because right now, kids that watch football from the ages of 7 to 15 think Washington football team or Washington Redskins, whatever, are some shit. You know, like they don't know anything about the glory years, the Super Bowls, and things of that nature, that they once were one of the more dominant teams in NFL history. They don't know that. All they know is there's some shit. So it's like you just want to do things that you can utilize as content to catapult your brand and continue to go with it. I mean, if it were me, I would have done it a bit more differently. But at the end of the day, you know, we've seen them blunder every opportunity they've had to do something the right way, whether it be Sean Taylor, whatever the case is. We've seen them go about the shit wrong. Even the, you know, dropping of the team name from Washington Redskins to Washington football team. Yeah, we've seen them make a mistake on everything. And that's not to knock Jason Wright, but I mean, there's so many different things that they could have done. I don't think it needs to be memorable. At the end of the day, like I've been saying on the show, if they win games, that's all that matters. But at least you could have shouted out Jonathan Allen, Terry McLaurin, Chase Young, and a couple other guys in the actual uniforms. You feel me? Like, how hard was that to do? You just put them on some damn mannequins, like like that's bullshit. You feel me?
Yeah, I think that's fair. The biggest thing, and I gotta remember this part too, even though I'm still kind of young, it's still not even meant for me. Like, their whole transition is for people younger than me. Like, they're trying to capture that brand new audience. So I think, to your point, AJ, you brought up something, like, even if it didn't feel a certain type of way for me, like, I didn't care about a reveal. These are supposed to be introductions to a new fan base, a younger fan base, and if you're going to go international, that's something that they actually harped on too. Like, they're a global brand. If you have that spotlight like you do on the Today Show, I'm not going to sit here and say it was all their fault. I don't know how, but I don't know if they knew how much time they were going to get versus all these other things. But I would imagine this was planned out well before the day of. I don't know if there was any last minute adjustments or anything, but for them to get that moment in front of millions of people, it was underwhelming. And like, that's why I harp through. If there was anything that I was frustrated or underwhelmed about, it would be the Today Show, because that's your moment. That's your moment to like introduce yourself to those younger guys, or something like that. Or maybe just that social media video did it for them too. They are one of the highest selling teams, jersey sales and merchandise sales right now. If they're not number one, they're like top 3 after that name reveal. So I don't know.
But again, like I said, we'll see tomorrow. They got a whole thing tomorrow. Maybe the players will come out with model uniforms tomorrow and all of that. And, you know, kind of to AJ's point about how kids kind of take on teams and how you try to get their attention. Kids are so different. I mean, for one, they're moved by winning. They like the winning teams. Whatever team is winning, they're pretty much
and
going
star
with that.
power.
And also, and I remember this too, because Jamal, you brought up the Tennessee Titans when they had changed their logo or uniform. I remember being in middle school around that time that happened. And I remember a couple of kids in my school were like, I'm Tennessee Titans fans now just because they got new jerseys, you know, and the jerseys was cool back then. It was just something new. So, I mean, maybe kids will latch on in that, but who knows? But either way, they're going to have to start winning. Like, that's the main thing they're going to have to start doing. They're going to start putting out a product that's competitive on a yearly basis. And that's how you're going to start capturing a new fan base. And it's going to be cool if it starts with the new uniform and the rebrand.
Hey, hold on. I'm looking at some of the comments. So tomorrow's event, they're charging people $5 to enter FedEx Field.
Yeah, $5 per car. I think it's $5 per car in the parking lot.
Is that the charity thing? That's charity, ain't it?
Yeah, it's going to charity. That's going to charity.
You can't get out of the car.
I think you can. I think it's the parking lot. I think that's what it is. I don't know if they're. Yeah, I think they are able to go into the stadium, but what I heard is it's going to be $5 per car.
You're going to charge me $5 and then just put some bullshit on it and be like, "Oh, it's for charity for a new team." Like, come on, bro. Like that. That's what I'm saying. It's like it's too many people that work for this team that don't necessarily care about the team or know the area. Like, they're just there getting a check. And that's not to say that everybody that needs to work for the team needs to be a fan or be from the area, but these people don't understand the Washington, D.C. community and how it operates. Like, there's no reason to charge $5. Why not just let the shit be for free? Like, that's stupid.
Hey, you're not wrong, man. It's an interesting setup. Put it that way. All right. So listen. Unfortunately, we had our technical difficulties to start this show, and that kind of cut our time short to speak on the uniforms or just even the whole brand thing as much as we could. Mike Oliva, again of Miami Dolphins.com and DolphinsTalk.com is scheduled to check in shortly. Fellas, we'll try and get some Senior Bowl conversation in right now until we await Mike. Fellas, there's one thing that's come out. Somebody that I do respect, Daniel Jeremiah. He's an NFL Network analyst, scouting guy. He had said that Malik Willis has been the best in the show, and I think that was on day one, if not multiple days. So there's an update on Malik Willis. Another thing was that there was a report. And we're talking about just this one quarterback right now, but there was a report that the Steelers are interested in Willis, like seriously considering selecting him in the draft. So if there's one thing about Willis is that he was the guy that's been linked to Washington, at least early on, specifically through Mel Kiper. I want to get your thoughts if you have anything on Senior Bowl topics as we get ready for that showdown on Saturday.
I guess I can go ahead and start. Willis, he has the highest risk, high risk, high reward of the draft of the quarterbacks. I mean, he's the guy who obviously I think he has the highest superstar potential. He's a guy that can, he can use his legs. He has a rocket arm, but he also it's like the risk factor is huge with him. I've watched a couple of the Liberty games this year, and decision making is a thing that I worry about with him. But I mean, I've heard some good things as well about his work ethic. I mean, I hear he puts it in, and he's one of those kids that really listens. And so if he does put it all together, you have a potential star right there. I mean, so that's a guy. I've been hearing a lot in these practices. I'm anxious to see him this Saturday in the game. Carson Strong is a guy I've been hearing a lot more about too. And the interesting thing is, I was listening to John Keim the other day, and John Keim said that Carson Strong is one of the guys that Washington is interested in. Obviously, he's the one with the big. Yeah, he's one of the guys that has the big question marks in the draft of his knees. Like he doesn't have the other kind of question marks that the other QBs have, as far as like play and this, that, and the third. But you're worried about his medicals and if his knee is going to hold up, because he's been injured a couple times and he was injured. He played injured this past season, which is why you didn't see a lot of the mobility. But a couple of the videos I've seen, he's actually moved pretty fluid at the Senior Bowl this week. I think he has the best arm in the draft. I mean, hands down. And he's a guy, I think that if his medical's clear and his knees look pretty good to go, I mean, that's a guy I wouldn't mind striking on at some point in the draft this year.
Absolutely. AJ, you got any comment before we get to the big dog, Mike?
I mean, with the Senior Bowl stuff, I really don't pay too much attention to it as far as like what's coming out report-wise. Because at the end of the day, the film doesn't lie. I mean, you get to understand the player a little bit better and the intangibles and, see how they break down film and their personality. But at the end of the day, you already have a better idea of who these guys are and what they can and what they can't do. Agents are also working these sources and reports to push their clients up the board. That's why agents typically are at Senior Bowl. It's not to see their guys practice. It's to build those relationships with scouts and coaches and get those rumors going, because at the end of the day, they have something at stake of getting that percentage as well. I think Malik Willis probably will move up a little bit more up the board because we'll be able to see his athleticism against a better group of competition. But at the end of the day, I still see Kenny Pickett being the number one quarterback taken in the draft. And I honestly feel like Willis has a bigger upside because of his athleticism. But at the end of the day, all it takes is one team to fall in love with you, and that's it, and you good to go. So we'll see what happens. Absolutely. But I'm praying. Before we bring the guests in, I'm praying that Washington doesn't draft a quarterback.
Well, we're gonna circle back to that. Definitely gonna circle back to that. But right now, like I said, we got now. I'm gonna try Mike Oliva.
Close enough.
Oliva. All right, there we go. I'm glad you corrected me. So, ladies and gentlemen, join us on tonight's episode of the Trap or Dive podcast. We have the good man Mike Oliva. Mike covers Mike and Dakota apparently covers the Miami Dolphins for DolphinTalks.com, and he also writes segments for the MiamiDolphins.com and is the host of the DolphinsTalk.com daily podcast. Mike's been a fan of the team himself since the early era, but it's transition covering the team in a professional sense for over about 20 years now. I think you said 2001. Mike, appreciate you joining us tonight, big dog. How you feeling?
Good. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing pretty good.
Good.
I can't complain, man. Look, it's Washington. Like, as you know, the situations around the league it's always important, especially when you don't have no quarterback. You start doing your research on all the available options, and for Washington, we ain't had no quarterback in 30 years. and this
Welcome to the club.
Is one of, yeah, and this is one of those moments where you kind of understand a situation, not fully, but you understand there's a situation in Miami, and Tua's name has been brought up, not necessarily in terms of Washington, but in terms of his future in Miami. So before we get into Tua, like I said, you've been covering the team for over 20 years. I want to get your opinion on the Brian Flores situation, given your proximity to everything. What were your initial thoughts when you heard about the lawsuit, and just general, what do you expect the outcome to be, whatever your opinion is, but what do you expect that outcome to be with Flores?
When it comes to the outcome, I have no earthly idea. This lawsuit really, it's almost like two lawsuits in one, in that Flores is suing the league, and he has examples with the Giants and the Broncos about not getting a fair interview to be their head coach, and how for minority candidates, it's tough to get a job and they're not being handed a fair shake and all that stuff. And that's a legitimate case because the numbers speak for themselves. There is one minority head coach, or I should say one African-American head coach in the NFL out of 32 teams. That's a legitimate case. That is all valid. I don't know what happened with the Giants. I don't know what happened to the Broncos, but that's a case he probably could pursue. And when, I don't know what the outcome can be. Can you force someone to hire you? I don't know. But that's there. The thing with Miami sounds more like sour grapes because they did hire him. They did hand him a job. And I think the national media perspective around him is the Miami Dolphins fired Vince Lombardi here. The guy had an under 500 record. They talk about the end of the year this year where they won 7 of their last 8 games. Yeah, they also started 1-7. Does that count? I mean, it has to count for something. And those 7 of the last 8 wins were against quarterbacks such as Mike Glennon, Tyrod Taylor, Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco. Like every horrible quarterback in the league, the schedule worked out in their favor. And when they played the real quarterbacks this year, even guys that might not be considered great, like a Wentz or a Carr or a Tannehill, they got destroyed. So, yes, they won a bunch of games late in the year against bad quarterbacks, but it's not like Brian Flores is this genius coach who had all the success in Miami. He had 4 offensive line coaches in 3 years, 4 offensive coordinators in 3 years. He fired coaches left and right. That's on him. There's no one else to point the finger to. Now, if he was offered to tank and get paid and all that stuff, those are strong accusations. Maybe they're true, maybe they're not. I have no idea. If they're true, Mr. Ross probably shouldn't own the Miami Dolphins anymore. But again, it's not like Brian Flores here is Vince Lombardi, Tom Landry, and all this rolled into one. He's just not a very good football coach. So that aspect of it, of why he was let go, is totally separate than the accusations of minority candidates being hired. It seems like there's 2 separate issues, and he threw them all in a barrel in this one lawsuit. And I think once you sort of separate each side, one of it seems very valid. The other one just seems like a guy who was let go, and he's very upset about it.
Hey, Mike, can I jump in here real quick?
Sure.
Maul as well.
Yeah.
So I don't want to sit here and say that Brian Flores isn't a good coach, because at the end of the day, he had to turn that around. Even from the 1-7 record, I think what's going on is he's one of those coaches who doesn't really get the shot for the ingredients that he really wants. Of course, Chris Greer is there. He's also African American, but Stephen Ross seems to have a lot of input in every aspect of that football team. So
that's
would
not
you say?
entirely. Yeah, that's not entirely accurate. A lot of the reporting from South Florida was whatever Brian Flores wanted in his time in Miami, Chris Greer got him. That was a partnership. Yes, by the end, it broke and it split, but Brian Flores got everything he wanted. If he wanted, it's like Chris Greer, he drafted Minka Fitzpatrick in 2018, pick number 11.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Flores wasn't there yet. The following year, he's there, Brian Flores. He goes, I don't want Minka Fitzpatrick. The guy's like 3 games into year 2, pick number 11, Chris Greer's pick. Chris Greer traded Minka Fitzpatrick. Brian Flores got literally everything he wanted. And when it comes to the quarterback, that's what everyone always talks about, Herbert or Tua. Brian Flores was 100% on board with drafting Tua Tagovailoa. Was it a mistake? Clearly. But Brian Flores was on board with that pick. He gave it a stamp of approval. Brian Flores got literally everything he wanted in Miami. And yes, they won games and they came close to the playoffs, but he still had an overall loser. It's not, and again, can an owner fire someone? And maybe it's so tough anytime we talk about this issue. I don't think he was fired because he was black. I think he was fired because he was tough to work with inside of their structure. And that's two very different things.
That's Brian's issue, right? They put out a narrative that he's been tough to work with, which now ruins his reputation to be able to get another head coaching opportunity.
But if it's true,
I mean, I don't know, but what I will ask you, Mike, is since you're down there, you have a good gist of the information, the ins and outs, right? Who ended up bringing up this Deshaun Watson to the Miami Dolphins thing? Was that a Brian Flores thing, or was that a Chris Greer and Stephen Ross thing? Because that created definitely some turmoil within that quarterback room, and for Tua Tagovailoa, who we're gonna talk about even further on the show. But like, who ended up bringing that up? Was it Brian Flores, or was it ownership and the GM?
So there's a clear answer, and then there's part of what we don't know yet. The clear answer is this: Brian Flores, Mr. Ross, and Chris Greer were on board for trading for Watson. They were all on the same page. Now, who sort of pushed it more than others? Who was the guy sort of driving that train? I don't know. Nobody really knows. But there is clear-cut evidence and proof that all 3 of them wanted Watson. So they're all on board. Now, I don't know who was sort of pushing the most. There's been some reporting it was Flores. And I don't know that to be a fact, though, because but if you look at things just from an outside point of view, he didn't get along with Tua, so that kind of makes sense. But I can't say that for a fact. And when it comes to him being hard to work with, here's all you have to know. He fired an offensive line coach 3 days into training camp. Someone he hired. And then he went through 4 offensive line coaches in 3 years. He went through 4 offensive coordinators in 3 years. Is he tough to work with, or can people just not work with him? Because some people quit, some people got fired. People like Chan Gailey, who's been around the league forever, was like, I can't work with him. He quit and just never came back. Jim Caldwell left the team. I can't work with him. There's people who are respected coaches in this league who had issues with him, and when he's constantly turning over his staff, especially on offense, because that's a side he's not as well versed in, especially on offense, there were so many changes each year. And if you look at the staff this past year on offense, there were no names you would that you would even know and sort of recognize, because those guys wouldn't come and work for him. They were guys getting their feet wet in the NFL, guys who just needed a break and a chance. Yeah, because those are the only guys you can convince to come to Miami and work under him. It's not that he was like an angry man. It was just he was tough to deal with, and the results are there. Like, they speak for themselves. Just look at the coaching turnover each year. White or black, people were leaving in droves, and he had to bring in new people every year.
Yep. Understood. I mean, that was definitely an interesting conversation, just given the situation. I actually didn't think about the Deshaun Watson part to ask you as a follow-up. So as it relates to Mike, clearly he's had a rough start to his career, whether it's injuries, performance, or just the Deshaun Watson thing, maybe in-house disagreements between coaches and management on how they feel about Tua. It hasn't really been as smooth as it could be. But on the macro side, let's just start there. In your own words, tell the story, describe the story of who Tua is and who he's been during his time in Miami.
Tua, during his time in Miami, he has been a good quarterback. The problem is the people who were drafted immediately around him have been great. So it's almost like if he was in this last year's draft with guys like Zach Wilson and Fields and all that, people would say Tua is outstanding compared to the people he was drafted around. But when you compare him to Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow, it's like it's lackluster. But is that fair or is that unfair? So it's a tricky situation. He's been good in Miami, and he's been all the players on the team, like him as a person. He's been a leader. This past year, he stepped up into more of a vocal leadership role. He checks every box for what you want out of a quarterback sort of off the field. Now, there was a report that him and the head coach this past year didn't see eye to eye on some things. The head coach thought he should have been working harder on his off days. But once again, was that a head coach issue? Because everyone else seems to love the kid when it comes to off the field stuff and sort of how he sort of handles himself, how he plays. He hasn't had the success of Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert, and that has hurt him. But he has been successful on the field, and he's done it almost with one hand tied behind his back. Because the Miami Dolphins offensive line was far and away the single worst offensive line unit maybe in the history of the sport. It was brutal. Their wide receiver group outside of Waddle this year, outside of Waddle this year was really not much. So he has a poor offensive line, zero running game to speak of, zero. And his wide receiver unit hasn't been great. And most weeks he played well enough to keep them in games. So as a quarterback, as a person, it hasn't been as bad as sometimes when you read in the national media how they sort of trash him. Yeah, if you compare him to Herbert and Joe Burrow, he's not that guy. And he might never be that guy. But if you compare him to the quarterbacks who were drafted last year, because usually lump together quarterback classes and guys drafted, around the similar time frame, he's probably a little bit better than guys like Fields, Zach Wilson, and maybe even Lawrence. But although I think Lawrence has a higher ceiling by far, his numbers, they compare favorably in that aspect. So I know he gets dragged through the mud on like Fox Sports and on some of these networks with these hosts who just don't like the kid. But it's not as bad as some make it seem. But it's also, not great when you compare it to the people he was drafted around.
So, first off, DC Breeze, appreciate the follow. Appreciate you checking in. So Daniel Oyefusi of the Miami Herald reported a few weeks ago that Dolphins owner Stephen Ross will leave the decision for the next quarterback. For Tua's future with the next coaching staff. Now we spoke on it for a split second in terms of his relationship with the team, but can you give insight as to how it kind of apparently soured so quickly? Because you're just looking at him in his first year, and in record wise, that you're winning with Tua. And then this year, obviously, there's another winning record with Tua. He misses time due to a few injuries, finger injuries and stuff like that. But just hand it to you, like, how did things sour so quickly, especially from an outsider's perspective? Because we didn't see that coming.
Yeah, once again, I think it all leads back to the head coach who was here, who just has. First off, I don't think he has patience for a young quarterback. That's why I think he loved Ryan Fitzpatrick. Because Ryan Fitzpatrick, you know what you're going to get. It ain't always going to be great, but it's a veteran quarterback. I don't have to put much thought into it. He kind of knows what he's doing, and I don't have to go through sort of the rookie mistakes. With Tua, I think that's where the clash was. Brian Flores just didn't have patience for a young quarterback in general to go through the growing pains that all young quarterbacks do. It's not that Tua made more mistakes than any other rookie quarterback. He made about what an average young quarterback does. They have their ups, they have their downs, they have their games that are great, they have their games where they sort of struggle. So that's where that sort of had their falling out. I think with Mr. Ross and what he said at that press conference, when he said it at the time, he probably totally believed it. I'll leave it up to the next head coach. It's come out, though, in this search for the next head coach, they have sort of pushed on the candidates. We would like you to sort of try and fix them, at least for 2022. So I think Tua, most likely, because now they're down to Mike McDaniel and Kellen Moore, two offensive coaches who they think can at least work with him for one more year. And then, as of right now, at least, they have 2 first-round picks in 2023. Who knows if they'll still have him in a year. Then if it's not working in 2022, they can, if they have to move on, they have extra picks per the trade with San Francisco in 2023 to possibly slide up a draft board or find somebody should they need to. So I think for 2022, he's safe. I think a lot of the issues were with the head coach who's no longer there. So I think the owner and I think the general manager are going to try to support him and put him in a position to succeed. But again, if Watson falls in their lap for, say, 50 cents on the dollar, even though he has all this stuff off the field happening, could they make a move for Watson? Absolutely, because that's too good to pass up, as long as some of the off the field stuff is obviously cleaned up. And, so I think 2 is there for 2022, but that Watson thing still hangs over because it wasn't just Flores. They were all on board for Watson.
Hey, Mike, quick question. So, if I'm not mistaken, the Miami Dolphins had a different dynamic than most teams in the NFL, where they had co-offensive coordinators.
Yep.
And those plays that were getting called in the huddle weren't coming from those co-coordinators. They were coming from the quarterback's coach, Charlie Fry, right?
At the start of the year, yes. Then when they were like 1-4, 1-5, 1-6, they finally made a switch, and it went strictly to one of the co-offensive coordinators, George Gotze, which again shows you kind of the dysfunction of the staff and how it was put together. You have co-offensive coordinators, but neither one of them are calling the plays. A quarterback's coach who's never called plays in his life is calling the plays. It made 0 sense on all levels.
Yeah, so I was just curious, like, how do you think that really, like, played into his development? I mean, I went to a Miami Dolphins game this year, actually, when they played the Colts, but Jacoby Brissett was the quarterback. Yes. Oh my God, that was atrocious.
Brutal. But, that was the worst game all year, probably. Yeah.
But yeah, at the end of the day, like, how do you feel like that stunts to his growth when he pretty much has 3 voices that he has to listen to on the offensive side of the ball, and that's not even counting the head coach. Like, do you think that dynamic had a major influence to doing his play early in the season and latter parts with it changing dynamic wise?
Yes, absolutely. That absolutely hurt it. Now, Charlie Fry was brought to Miami partially because he had worked with Tua in some camp when Tua was still at Alabama. He had a relationship with him. He worked with him before. So he brought him there to sort of help him sort of progress in the NFL at a faster rate. It never worked because, like you said, he had 2 offensive coordinators and a quarterback's coaches calling the plays, and he has no experience ever calling plays before. And that was part of the reason they, started off slow. Part of it was he also wasn't there. Like the first or second play of week number 2, he got hurt with his ribs. They got shattered because, once again, our offensive line is absolutely brutally bad, and he was out for like a month. So, but the second half of the year, yes, they beat up on teams that weren't good, but Tua played much better, partially because they did give the play calling to George Gotze, one of the 2 offensive coordinators, and he was the lone voice calling plays, and he had some offensive coordinator experience when he was with Houston, so he was more of an experienced voice. He knew more about the RPO type offense that they wanted to run with Tua, and that helped, as well as once the Watson rumors sort of all went away past the trade deadline, November 3rd or 4th, I can't remember the exact day. That also helped too, because the stress of will he be here, won't he be here, is he coming, is he not coming? Once that all went away for at least till the end of the year, that seemed to also not just help him too, but help the rest of the team, knowing, okay, this is our team from now till the end of the year, and that cloud just went away for a little while. So I think all that was a factor in how he sort of progressed as the year went on. But yes, having co-offensive coordinators and then have the quarterback coach call plays was an unmitigated disaster.
Unmitigated. That sounds like Stephen A. I love that. I love that phrase.
Stephen A.
Yeah. So one question before we get into his skill set, I just want to get into his injuries right quick. You talked about the ribs in week 2. Can you just give us context on who he is in terms of his toughness? Obviously, fractured ribs is what he dealt with this year, as well as a fractured finger. And I think he dealt with a fractured finger in his rookie year as well.
Yeah.
Just how is he in terms of being able to battle through pain, or is this like a concern, or like a legitimate concern in terms of missing time due to injuries?
The biggest red flag about him is the injuries. He is one of those guys who's always injured. It's always something. When he was at Alabama, he had a whole bunch of injuries, but the three major ones where he had 2 ankle injuries, 2 separate times, where he had to have surgeries on his ankles. Now, there's a caveat here in that if he was at any other school, at Ohio State, Clemson, he wouldn't have had surgeries on his ankle because they would have just let him not play, rest up, and would have healed in like a month. At Alabama, don't ask me how or why. They got some weird way of doing things where they can do a certain type of surgery on your ankle and you're back in like 10 days where you don't have to wait. So he had 2 surgeries on his ankles. And, of course, the hip injury, which everyone thought could maybe end his time even as a player. There's that major injury. Then he comes to the NFL last year. Thumb injury. He misses at least 1 game. I think he might have missed 2. I can't remember. And then this year, the ribs are broken. He's out for about 4 or 5 games. Then he comes back for a week or 2. Then he hurts his thumb. It's always something. And he can play through it to a point. I'm not saying he's not tough because these are like major injuries for the most part. I'm talking about ribs being broken and stuff with your ankle and your hip. Those are major injuries. The thumb and the finger being broken by hitting it on a helmet, that's a little bit of just unluckiness that a lot of quarterbacks do at times. Can't get on him for those too much, but he's always injured. I mean, you're never going to get a 16 or now 17 game season out of him in the NFL. It's always something. The biggest red flag with him is, can he stay healthy? And even if Miami has an improved offensive line, let's say, which it can't be worse. Say it's improved to just where it's adequate, middle of the pack, maybe not top end of the league. How many hits can he take? Because something always seems to go on him. And it's one of the big worries that fans of the Miami Dolphins have when it comes to him is, can he stay on the field for an entire season?
Okay, Mike, I guess when he's healthy, what would you say his strengths and weaknesses are at this point in his career?
Strengths are pinpoint accuracy. This kid can throw it, and he knows exactly where it's going, and it's not going to be a little to the left or a little to the right. It's going to be exactly where he wants to go. Pinpoint accuracy, and he can navigate the pocket with his footwork extremely well. Those are the biggest strengths he has, where arm strength, it's okay. It's not the strongest in the world, but it's not bad either. It's just not great. But he has pinpoint accuracy. He can navigate the pocket, and he can sort of move when he needs to. Now, this past year, we saw him run less and sort of take off less. I think part of it is because he knows he can't take the hits that he maybe thinks he can take when you are outside the pocket and sort of running. So he knows what he can do, and he kind of knows what he can't do, which for a lot of players, a lot of quarterbacks, sometimes they don't. They all get crazy tough, and they think I can just run someone over. He knows where he has to slide or he has to get out of bounds or I can't take off here because I'm going to get drilled. So he's very smart in knowing his limitations, but the main thing is the accuracy. That's where he's very, very good.
And Mike, the kind of follow up on that, what would you say his ceiling is in this league? Do you see a guy that, you obviously say he has the pinpoint accuracy, he can navigate the pocket. Those are great traits you want to see in a quarterback. But can you see him enter the top 10 in this league at any point in his career?
Could he enter I think he could enter the top 10. He's not there yet. He could enter the top 10. He's never going to be top 5. Never. He's just not that guy. Top 10? Yeah, he could enter the top 10. I think he's one of those guys, though. You look at the great quarterbacks in this league. You see, the great ones, we all know names, Pat Mahomes, Joe Burrow, I guess you have to throw out there now, Rodgers and stuff. They elevate the play of the people around them. If the offense is having a slow day, a couple times a year, they can sort of drag a team to a win, make a few plays, and sort of lead a team. With Tua, I think everything around him needs to be going well for him to have success. When the team's having an off day, I don't know if he's the guy who's going to put the team on his back and sort of drag him to a win a couple times a year. He needs to have a solid running game. He needs to have wide receivers who can get open. He's not going to throw anybody open. He needs them to be open. He needs a lot of stuff around him to go right for him to be successful. And I don't know if that can change over time. I just don't know how long the wait would be for that to change. because I think he's more of a guy who needs help. He's not going to be that top end guy who's going to say, okay, guys, we got this. I'm going to march us right down the field and we're going to get away. I don't know if he's that guy.
Now, you already mentioned the pocket quarterback thing, and the last thing that we're trying to figure out is the interception part. Now it wasn't that many interceptions in terms of like from a 17 game standpoint, just 10 interceptions on the year. But if you had to like identify, because you say he's good in the pocket as a maneuvering and also as well as his pinpoint accuracy, how does he deal with processing what he's seeing? Does he see the field well? How would you label his field vision and his processing level? Is everything good on that side?
It's good. It's not bad. Could it be improved? Yes. I know there was a cornerback for the Patriots, J.C. Jackson, who like trashed him after one game. After Miami beat New England, J.C. Jackson was like, Tua is awful. I'm like, dude, you sound totally like you were just mad that you lost to him. But he was trashing him, saying if he doesn't see his first read, he just sort of throws the ball up, which is not entirely true. He could be improved in that one aspect of his game. But he goes to his reads. Now, look, he loved Waddle this past year. Like if Waddle even was remotely open, he didn't even look at anybody else, threw it towards Waddle, and Waddle, he made the catch 9 times out of 10. So he loved Waddle this past year. That's why it's almost tough to answer, because he leaned on Waddle so much in 2021. Why Waddle caught like,
I'm gonna say he had like 120 catches, right?
Yeah, something crazy like that. So he leaned on him a lot, partially because there's not much else to throw to. But so it's kind of tough to answer that question. But no, he's good. He's good at everything. I don't know if he's great at anything. That's, I guess, the best way to sort of talk about him. He's solid at almost everything. He's got a good floor. He's got, but I don't know if he's necessarily great at any one thing outside of like the accuracy aspect, which he is exceptional at. There's not much greatness there yet. He's good. He deserves to be a guy.
I think I would say that's a good starting point for a third year quarterback.
Yeah, who's had zero help on. He's had zero help on offense. The offense in Miami last year and this year has been, which is part of the reason why the head coach isn't there anymore. The quarterback shuffle with Fitzpatrick last year. You don't know who's going to start week to week or from half to half. This year, the offensive coordinator situation was a disaster. Offensive line was a mess. There's no running game at all. Wide receivers outside of Waddle, there's not much there. Parker is good, but he's always hurt as well, never on the field. He hasn't had a lot of help, and he hasn't had a coach and a strong offensive-minded coach to sort of take him under his wing. And I think that's with the next head coaching hire, it's going to be an offensive-minded coach between one of these two guys. And the hope is they're going to put a system in place around him. They're going to fix the offensive line. They're going to give him a little bit of a running game. It's not going to be the best running game, but just give him a little bit of help on that side of the ball. And then really see in 2022 if he makes a great stride to where they continue to ride it out with him in the future, or even when you give this kid more help, there's something missing and it's just not working. Then in 2023, like I said, they can then make a call where they have some extra picks, at least as of now, until the league probably takes a couple away to make a move for a quarterback, should they need to that offseason. So that's why I think this next head coach hire, either Mike McDaniel or Kellen Moore, is really going to play a huge factor in Tua's 2022 and how they can sort of get him to take that next step forward. Because it's not bad. If you listen to Skip Bayless, Colin Cowherd, Shannon Sharp, they make it sound like Tua is the worst player who's ever played in the league. If he walks on the field, he can't even tie his own shoes. He's not that bad. He ain't that bad, but he also hasn't shown himself to where he could possibly be great. And I think but that's not all on him. Just the situation in Miami's toxic.
And environment.
It's a terrible situation. It was terrible. And hopefully with this next head coach hire, they spend some more time with the offense and give this kid at least a chance to show something in 2022.
So I just wanted to jump in real quick. So, Mike, what sounds scary about the two candidates that you mentioned, Mike McDaniels in San Francisco and Kellen Moore, is it seems like the primary focus is just Tua, but what about the rest of the team,
Well,
and then aside from that, if you were running the Miami Dolphins, what would you do for this upcoming season? Would you keep Tua? Would you possibly trade him to, say, Washington? And if you were to trade him, what would you be looking for back in compensation?
Well, it's a lot.
And also, who would you hire as head coach?
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack there. Here's what I'll say. When you got, and you guys are fans of the Washington football team.
Commanders.
Or the Commanders now, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We the Commanders now. We got to get used
Your
to it.
owner is always in the news, too, for stuff that's not too great. When you got a crazy owner, who are you going to get to be your head coach? Sean Payton ain't coming here. You're not getting top quality guys who want to work for them. Ron Rivera is actually somewhat of a very good get to actually work for Dan Snyder. I'll give him that. Who's going to go to Miami right now? You got to take a flyer on an unproven guy. And one of the things that they're sort of selling, either Moore or Mike McDaniel, is if you come, we're going to keep half the staff. The staff on the other side of the ball, which is very good on defense, we can keep them. So they're going to be like no chin out. It's an arranged marriage, which most head coaches aren't going to want. They're going to want to come in and hire their own staff and bring in all their own guys. But for a young guy, I think Moore is only 33. Mike McDaniel, like 37, 38, who you have one side of the ball, which plays at a high level, and the staff is going to stay. So for a young coach, you're walking into to where you can just focus on the offense. And yes, you have to work with the other staff that's already here. You might not even know them, which makes it, once again, who's going to come to Miami in that type of situation? It makes it tough to attract a quality candidate. What was your other question again?
So you had mentioned that the candidate part, and AJ also asked in terms of compensation. Oh yeah, who would you hire, and also compensation for Tua? And I want to twist that question just because our guy Jarian was in the chat. He said because you believe that he'll be here in 2022, but say there was a move for Deshaun Watson. Let's just go down that path in terms of Washington being able to try and acquire Tua. What would this trade compensation look like if you all were to get Deshaun, and then who would you hire?
Okay, out of the candidates that are realistic for Miami, I would go with Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel, to me, just seems like he's more polished than Kellen Moore, in that Mike McDaniel's worked for 6 NFL teams more. He's only worked for the Cowboys. He's seen more. He's experienced more. And I think Mike McDaniel seems like the better fit right now for what Miami's looking for in a head coach. But if they did go with Moore, it wouldn't be the end of the world, because I think they're both a huge risk either way. But I would go with Mike McDaniel. Compensation-wise, for Watson, it sounds like a trade is going to be at least 3 to 4 first-round picks, possibly 4, and 2 other picks, rounds 3 or 4 type. That's what it's going to take to get Watson, assuming everything's somewhat cleared up off the field. Trading for him, you probably know he's going to face some sort of a suspension, 6, 8, 12 games. So that is sort of baked into this. Even if he is found innocent of most of these charges, there's most likely going to be some sort of a suspension. So you're going to have to part with a lot of picks to get a guy you might only have for half the year. So that's why that's a crazy type of situation. For Tua to trade to another team, Miami would probably look for at least a first, maybe a third, a first and a fourth, it has to be at least a first, I think, and then something else. The something else doesn't necessarily have to be a second-round pick, but a first and a third, a first and a fourth. You probably, as long as they have somebody like Watson already in hand, they're going to want to recoup some of the picks that they traded away. So you're going to probably want a first and something else. Now, that something else could even be a player, but they're going to want a first and something else, probably another pick, honestly. So that's what I think it would take to probably get him away from Miami, should Miami want to move on.
Absolutely. Mike, I appreciate your time tonight. I appreciate all the insight on Flores, Watson, Tua, the whole situation down there with the Miami Dolphins. This is the Plug Talk to let everybody know what you got going on, where they can find you, hear from you, read your work. Let the people know what you got going on, Mike. Appreciate you once again.
Yep, go to the website, DolphinsTalk.com. We have everything with the Miami Dolphins. And with this story this past week, there's been so much to talk about, so much to cover about with the news with Brian Flores. But hopefully soon we're going to shift here and start talking more about who our next head coach is and talk about stuff more on the field, because the off-the-field stuff like that, it's not fun to talk about. Nobody wants to talk about it.
Correct.
as I said,
know.
it's valid. I think his lawsuit and the hiring practices of minority candidates is very valid, and I actually hope he kind of wins that part of this. But the other part, I think, is a whole separate situation to where he's just sort of throwing everything into the kitchen sink in one, and there's two very separate topics in that lawsuit. So hopefully we don't have to talk about that much more. But everyone head to dolphinstalk.com.
Oh, I think it's only going to get uglier because.
Oh, I know it's going to get uglier.
That player that he was supposed to meet on the yacht is
Tom Brady.
So.
And I know. Which leads me to, if you're Brian Flores, why wouldn't you want to coach Tom Brady for a year or two in Miami? I know.
But I mean, it's like at the end of the day, he already knows Tom Brady. So why did he need to meet him on the yacht?
I don't know. There's so much unknown. I don't know. Yeah, I know. But it's like, even if you don't want to meet with him because, hey, Tom Brady's under contract. Tom, I'll talk to you in a week when you're not under contract. You could have done that. You didn't have to just storm him. I don't know. I don't know. The whole situation's crazy. Weird. Nobody knows what's true, what's not true, because now we heard from the side of the Dolphins, we heard from the side of the Broncos, we heard from the side of the Giants. They're saying none of this is true. I mean, he's taking sort of half-truths and expanding it to stuff that's not necessarily true. So I don't even know what's true or not. That's why it's tough to talk about until there's an investigation and we get all the facts and we know more. Then the Miami Dolphins might be in the market for a new owner, and they might be losing some picks in the draft. And if he did some of the stuff he's being accused of, he should lose the team. Nobody's saying other. He should, but I don't know if that's necessarily true. And I don't think he was fired because of the race of his race. I think he was fired because he was not this great coach that he's been painted out to be. He's a good coach. You know, he's good, but I don't know.
That's where it bucks out for you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Mike, I appreciate your time, man, and keep up the good work over there. Stay safe, all that good stuff, man. And
you too.
Good luck with that. Good luck with that coach over there. You know, whatever
whatever
decide,
we do.
Miami.
Yeah,
whatever y'all decide, man. Good luck with that coach, man. But no, seriously, take care. Enjoy your weekend. All that good stuff. Be safe.
All right, guys, have a good one.
Appreciate
Thanks.
you, Mike.
Yes,
all right, bye.
Yes, sir. All right. Oh shoot, there we go. All right. So, that was Mike Oliva of the Miami Dolphins.com, DolphinsTalk.com. All the tool information is right there. So if y'all learn something, those are listening, watching, you know what I'm saying, take that and, we'll see. Apparently they're trying to rekindle things with Tua, so he may not be on the market just yet. But we will continue the search. All right. So with that being said, that one, this episode is a wrap. Next week we do have Russell Wilson, a representative, coming on for Russell Wilson. So we'll kind of see and dive into the Russell Wilson situation in Seattle and see what they got going on in the Pacific Northwest. We'll be back on Tuesday of next week. Obviously Thursday was a little bit different this week because of the name reveal on Wednesday. AJ, Dre, I don't know if you all got any plans, but bring your goddamn notes to the table next Tuesday because we talking Senior Bowl as well. We got to recap everything that we got going on with that stuff. See what quarterbacks actually stood out in the game as well. Even though AJ, he don't really pay attention to that college ball all-star stuff. But before we get out of here, man, y'all got any last thoughts, any last comments, things like that?
Well, Senior Bowl this weekend. That's what I'm looking forward to. I'll have my DVR. Like you said, I will be coming prepared next week. I'm still hoping to, because there's been a lot of smoke. I don't know if there's any truth to the rumors, but they are trying to put in a big deal for a quarterback, and that may can come soon, man. Hopefully it's Russell Wilson. That'll be the hope number one. So fingers crossed for some news on that, maybe in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm right there with Dre. I'm hoping by the time we do episode Tuesday that they've already agreed on a framework for some quarterback, whether it be Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson. So we don't have to talk about these senior bowl quarterbacks.
Hey, that's some George Allen shit. That's the one coach that didn't like he didn't like the rookies, didn't he? He traded away all the draft picks.
Yeah. George Allen.
Okay, AJ and George Allen type. All right. But nah. All right. So we out of here. Y'all be safe. Enjoy y'all weekend. Watch that Senior Bowl. The fellas will be back on Tuesday to recap everything and talk a little bit Russell Wilson and all that good stuff. So y'all be safe, and we are out of here. Peace.